Welcome to Love and Money with Barbara Treadwell, where we explore the deep connection between our money and the people we love.
Hello, this is my new podcast, Love and Money with Barbara Treadwell. What's it all about? Well, let me put it this way. 30 years ago, my business coach, Sid Walker, asked me a very simple question. Who are your clients? Oh, I said, anybody who will buy from me. He said, oh no, Barbara, we need to work on that. Sid is an intuitive coach. We took a deep dive, and 2 hours later, I had a new answer. My clients are people who love someone. Yes, I'm a financial advisor for 42 years. And of course, I talk about money with my clients, but the conversation goes much deeper than that. We talk about life and death, health and illness, loneliness and fulfillment. We talk about exposure and protection, and of course, legacy planning. And almost always, there is a connection between our money and the people we love. On this podcast, we're going to explore that fascinating connection, and I'm going to introduce you to my clients, colleagues, and experts I know in the field who will explore some fascinating subjects that I think you will relate to. However, first, I'm going to talk about myself so that you have an idea of where I came from, how I got here, and how I work. I have not always been a financial advisor. My first career was as a therapist, counseling terminally ill patients and their families, and I did that for 15 years. It was not exactly a predictable transition from death to money, but I would say the common denominator is communication. I can certainly talk, but I love to listen. And I am a student of my own business and my own life. My friend Abby says, Barbara is always discovering. Mark Twain said, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why. When I say that I'm a student of my own business, I mean that professionally and even personally. I'm always in a course of study. I walk the walk and talk the talk. I buy every single product that I sell. When I talk about estate planning, I have all of those documents and they are reviewed consistently, and I have managed money accounts for growth and accumulation. When I talk about retirement planning, even though I'm not retired yet, I have all of those wonderful guaranteed lifetime income annuities to be there for me when I'm ready to retire. And when I talk about educational funding, I put my daughter through college, and as we speak, I'm putting my grandchildren, Harley and Rocco, through college. They are at Pace University in Manhattan and doing well. As for personal growth, you will learn from this conversation that I have been to hell and back a couple of times, but I also have great joy and success in my life, and I'm particularly passionate about my charitable endeavors, especially Lexington Center, where my son Terry lived for 22 years. As background, I'm an 11th generation New Englander. That's pioneer stock, with a mother and father who were married 67 years, and they both lived to be 95 years old. My growing up years were good. I have a younger brother, Tom, who is an ordained minister, and for decades he's been associated with a religious organization called the Navigators. He and Anne have been married 43 years, and they have 2 sons, Father Mark, an Anglican priest, and Will, a successful businessman. Together with their wives, Andrea and Mandy, they have given Tom and Anne 7 grandchildren between them. I was the first person on either side of my family, and I think still am, to be divorced. And I've been married and divorced twice. I married my college sweetheart in 1966, and in 1971, our first child, Terry Jr., was born, a severely mentally and physically handicapped child. His sister Kate came roaring along 1 year later. Terry was profoundly mentally challenged, and he had bilaterally clubbed feet, which is very rare. It's almost only one leg that is involved. The protocol for his care was casts for almost 2 years, and then surgery one leg at a time because it was so severe. 2 days before that first operation, the father of our 2 children and my husband of 8 years at that point got into his sailboat and he left us. I'm not kidding. He literally sailed into the sunset and we never saw him again. That was 1974. And in case you're wondering, he did not die at sea. Someone sent me his obit 5 years ago. We had just moved into a new house, and 90% of our household income had walked out the door. Big Terry made big money. I made $585 a month, gross. I had to get 2 more consulting jobs to hold it all together, but I did not lose my new house. During that operation, Terry went into respiratory arrest, and they ended up having to do both legs. Dr. Rutledge took a break from the operating room and came out, drenched in sweat, told me what had happened, that he was stabilized, but that he wanted to do the other leg while he had the opportunity because he wasn't going to put him under again until he knew what happened. And he needed my permission. So, of course, I gave him my permission. The surgery itself was a success, but when my boy regained consciousness, he was a different human being. He screamed all the time. He never slept. He was violent. He broke the rung of a kitchen chair with his bare hands, and he was 50 pounds dead weight, not even sitting up yet, between the ages of 3 and 4. After a year of 3 jobs and no sleep, my back was killing me, and I was on my knees with exhaustion. I was defeated. A rare event. And I did what I said I would never do. I institutionalized my job. It was a god-awful decision. But it didn't take very long to know that it was the right decision for our family. Terry got the 24-hour care that he had to have. Barbara got some sleep, and Kate got the attention that she deserved. A couple of years went by. We were all doing well. I met and married my second husband, Joe Treadwell, a wonderful man. He adopted both of my children. Joe and I did not stay married, but it was not a sad story. We were dear friends until the day he died in 1989. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and in those days, it was a death sentence. He was gone 3 months from the date of his diagnosis. But we had 3 months of warning. It's a gift of time. And I traveled back and forth to visit him on the weekends. As you know, I counseled terminally ill people for 15 years, but nobody in my life or close circle of friends died during that time. It was not the motivation for me doing that work. So I thought so many times during the 3 months that life is strange, and I think that those 15 years of experience were all about helping our combined children, they were just teenagers, say goodbye to their dad in a loving way and give him permission to go. More time went by. My childhood girlfriend, Judith, an actor in New York, said, "You should come to New York, all of you. It'll be great." It was a bodacious idea, but we did it. And through brutal trial and error, it took 3 moves to get the right home for Terry. The second home actually dropped him off at an emergency room in their in their locality and said, "We don't want him. Please call his mother." But the third place was what I call gifts from angels on earth. Those are people who swoop in and help you when you're on your last leg. You don't think you can take another step, and there's so much more to do that day. And we found Lexington Center at the foot of the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, and Terry thrived there. Kate excelled in academics and sports in New York, and I found a most unusual career counselor, Darrell Schulman, who helped me discover my new calling in financial services. Like New York City is where my whole life turned around. And the key ingredient was Lexington. From the day Terry walked in their doors in 1990, he was 19, I never had to worry about him again. Not ever. And their care is 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year, decade after decade after decade. It's unimaginable for a mother who cannot take care of her own child to trust other people to do her job. Terry's life expectancy was long. They said 85. Even though he was severely disabled, he wasn't sickly. He didn't get colds or the flu. But he got simple pneumonia, and it wasn't simple. It was fatal. It claimed him one organ at a time through one brutal week, and then I lost him. I was inconsolable. A year went by. I paid my bills. I went to work. I roboted through the day, but it was hard to breathe and harder yet to sleep. A friend and colleague of mine in Chicago sent me a tape. It was a guided meditation by Dr. Pillai, a Hindu in India. I listened to it 10 times. And at the end of that tape, there was an opportunity to email questions. Well, I had a lot of questions. It ain't right that your kid leave this earth before you. I mean, that's just wrong. And a lovely woman named Sushrita called me from Canada in response to my questions. We talked for a couple of hours, and at the end of that time, she said, "I think that you would benefit from some time with Hanuman Das." I said, "Well, who is Hanuman Das?" And she said, "He's a Siddha." I said, "What's a Siddha?" She said, "He's a human being, but he has special powers, and I think that he will help you with your grief work." So I was a little bit skeptical. I talked to my mother about it. At that point, she was 90. My dad had died, and she was living in my carriage house. So I walked across the courtyard, up the stairs to the carriage house, and told her about the conversation. And at that point, even though so many people, including my mother, and my family were religious, I had not got religion, and she listened very carefully. My mom was wise, sharp as a tack until the day she died at 95 years old. And she knew me well. And she said, "Barbara, I think this makes sense for you. I think this is good for you. You should take the call." So the call was scheduled for the 1-year anniversary to the day of Terry's death, and there were 4 people: Hanuman Das and his interpreter, Maheshwari in India, Sushrita in Canada, and me in Savannah. The 3 of them spoke this esoteric dialect of Hindi, me only English. But the reason for the 2 interpreters is that there are so many differences between the Eastern and Western culture, and even vocabulary is missing in one language or the other to describe how someone is feeling or what they're thinking. What Hanuman Das had to say was startling. Terry was nonverbal. He had never spoken, and he had been dead a year. And what Hanuman Das told me, only Terry could have told him. As accurate as it was still difficult for me to get my arms around it. And when the call ended, I walked back across the courtyard, up the steps where my mother was waiting, anxiously to hear about the call, and I told her everything. She listened very carefully, and then she gave me her interpretation of Hanuman Das's words, and she was spot on. She said, "Barbara, you should continue these calls. This is good for you, honey." So we did that. I had one call a month for a year, and that began my journey with Hinduism. Mind you, it was not compensation for Terry's life, but it helped me so much with my grief work. And I came to believe in a higher power. And I don't think that that would have happened if Terry had not left this earth and gone on to his next adventure. My two ingredients for success are resiliency and gratitude. I've been beaten up a lot, but I've learned in the lyrics of Taylor Swift to just get up and shake it off. Resiliency means a couple of things to me. One is that if there's no other choice in the matter, Barbara is either going to go down or get the hell back up and fight. And even though I abhor violence, I inexplicably love boxing, and I'm always cheering for the guy on the mat to get up before the count of 10. My second ingredient is gratitude, and it's an essential part of my character. It's impossible for me to feel sorry for myself or for any of you to feel sorry for me because I am very fortunate and I have great gifts. When I'm discouraged, my simple remedy is to count my blessings. So count them with me. My brother and I were the luckiest kids on the planet to have the parents that we had. We miss them every day. I inherited a wonderful brain, and that is such a gift. I have awesome friends. I've traveled the world. I'm strong and healthy, and I've had 2 glorious careers. This is my resume. I'm 81 years old, and I've had a most exciting and interesting life, and I bring unusual experiences, unique perspectives, a lot of experience to the table. I still am curious. I love my work, and I want you to share some of the stories that my clients have to tell. We're going to cover an amazing array of topics, including raising financially fit kids. You know, there are 2 things that we don't learn in school, which are how to raise children and how to manage money. We're also going to talk about the multi-generational family business, and we have a wonderful guest who is in the 5th generation of his family business. The adult disabled child at home, we're talking to 2 different families. Charitable giving. Dating again after the loss of a loved one. Love languages and spending. Biohacking for a long life, a subject that interests me a lot. Care of elderly parents. Navigating divorce and finances, just to name a few. You can connect with me on my website, simply barbaratreadwell.com. I hope that you will continue to listen to the podcast. Please invite your friends. Thank you so much for listening. Good evening.
Thanks for joining me on Love and Money with Barbara Treadwell. I hope today's conversation gave you something to think about as you navigate your own financial and personal journey. You can also visit barbaratreadwell.com to learn more about my work and connect with me. See you on the next episode.